picking up the pieces of what was, but is no more. That's what many area residents are faced with and agonizing over. Sunday's quake lasted seconds, but for many, it will take years to recover.
It kind of stays inside you and doesn't come out. You know, it's got to work itself out. It takes a long time. Like I had a lot of nightmares, you know. But eventually, I guess it'll work its way out. And we'll get back up on our feet and go again.
These homes have been condemned. In this case, one that took a dream and a lifetime to build.
It's hard because most of it was my mom's. I inherited the house about 10 years ago when she died, and this was her special dream house that she put pretty much her whole life into.
For others, the immediate future means sleeping in pup tents, their own homes turned upside down, almost literally. Not everyone suffered damage, but almost everyone is suffering from a lack of drinking water. There's a threat of contamination because of water main breaks. In Yucca Valley, it's tough to find a cup of coffee.
So no coffee, no juice, no Cokes. We just had to buy like canned Cokes and things. So it's hard.
You're welcome. Next people are going to need a shower.
Many people are getting their water from the U.S. Marines, who have set up a distribution point at a local fire station.
Water's a problem, so from brushing your teeth to showering off, you've only got gallon jugs and that because the stores are out of everything that's larger capacity, like 5-gallon stuff.
The fire department is sending out damage assessment crews, and road crews continue to repair pavement damage. The town hardware store is doing banner business, selling repair supplies.
Most of them are getting plumbing items for the emergency to get their houses back in order, get their water going, a little bit electrical, getting their systems back online.
While residents are trying to recover from the devastation, scientists are hovering around the quake's fault line, trying to figure out when there might be more major temblors.
We are expecting the San Andreas to go. It's overdue for a major event. And one school of thought has it that a large event near the San Andreas may be enough to set the thing on its way.
A rural community ripped in half, working toward mending the wounds and getting on with its life. Greg Lamont, CNN, Yucca Valley, California.
The place is Yucca Valley, California, about 125 miles east of Los Angeles. Since 2 destructive earthquakes jolted the area last week, there have been thousands of aftershocks, according to Caltech, which monitors movements beneath the earth. The aftershocks have residents on edge.
The ground over there is still coming up, and it's still shearing at the same time.
On this day, Ron Willis, his wife and baby, woke up to another shaker. By mid-morning, they had felt 4 more.
Every time there's an earthquake, you don't know how long they're going to last. You know, every time you feel it coming on, you wait and you wait to see how long it's going to go. And if it keeps going, everybody runs out of the house because it could come down too. It's just like the house here did. So it's pretty petrifying, is what it is.
Some residents remain inside Red Cross shelters because their homes have been condemned. Others live in tents and mobile homes in their yards.
It's been a little frightening. You know, nobody really knows what's going on. We keep having these shakers and they're not going away.
Some companies are back in business despite the onslaught of temblors. But for many, it is not business as usual. Concerns that weakened buildings might collapse have forced them to move employees outside into makeshift work areas just in case.
We're 50% up now. By Wednesday, I hope to be 100% up in production.
The U.S. military came to the rescue and provided much-needed water to the area after supplies were disrupted during the quakes. Some had no water. Others were afraid to drink theirs because it had an awful smell.
It don't taste good at all. And whether it's dangerous or not, I don't know. But it's best not to take a chance on it.
And for some, the earthquakes have increased business. In heavily damaged trailer parks, private companies are busy putting homes back on foundations.
Business is booming. I didn't know where I was going to work at next until this quake came.
Like Randy Willis, residents here are hoping that the terrifying aftershocks will stop soon. The problem is they just don't know when that might happen. Robert Vito, CNN, Yucca Valley, California.
It was just after a beautiful Southern California desert morning sunrise when the violent shaking began again in Yucca Valley. First, a 4.9 aftershock. A few minutes later, a 5.4. Buildings were jolted, including the ones already destroyed. A strip mall that was unaffected by the 7.4 quake crumbled under the pressure of the 5.4 aftershock.
I moved outside, and then a few seconds, I don't know how long it was, but then the ground started really shaking, and then we saw the building front go.
A water main broke, sending a stream of water 30 feet into the air. And in a community already reeling from more than 1,000 aftershocks, nerves have been strained to the limit.
We slept in our car last night, and we thought, well, we'd go back and sleep in the house tonight.
We came running out here and asked to have the breakfast served out here on the patio. But we want to be careful of that tile, too.
Dozens of people found themselves waking up in Red Cross shelters. Some because they were too afraid to be alone, others because of damage.
The earthquake rippled the floor in my kitchen, the house, so till it gets inspected, this is where I'm at with my 4 kids and wife.
My kids are nervous wreck. They're real uneasy, my daughter especially, because she went into shock yesterday morning, so every time we had an aftershock or something, when we got here, she was a lot more comfortable. You know, I guess she felt safer here.
The senior citizens we found at this devastated apartment complex say they have every intention of staying.
You don't look at it like one item at a time. You take what is left, what is can be repaired, what can be placed back up, and the things that can't, it doesn't matter.
Hundreds of mobile homes have been damaged, and many residents are looking for more substantial housing. Water remains an issue. With the water main breaks, there is a threat of contamination, so residents are being advised to boil any tap water they may use. Roads are still being cleared of debris from buckling and landslides, and with the continuation of aftershocks, some very severe, it may take quite some time for people in this community to return to the relaxation of rural life. Greg Lamont, CNN, Yucca Valley, California.
People displaced by the quake had a couple of options. They could stay inside their damaged houses, or could stay with friends, or at one of 2 shelters set up by the Red Cross.
I don't know. My 4-year-old's thinking about moving back to Seattle, but I don't know. We're going to pray about it. We'll see. We'll see how things go.
Hey, we're waiting for the big one. We're going to rock and roll.
But most residents of this apartment complex on the west side of Yucca Valley slept outside their places Sunday night.
I'm going to hold off. Maybe stay one more night out here, maybe tomorrow.
Tim Hoskins put his kids in his pickup truck for the night and plans to drive them away in a few days.
And I won't step a foot back in there. I'm moving. I'm selling everything I got, and I'm moving out of state.
As serious as it is, people were trying to make the best of things. Kevin, what's the situation here? Why are all these people sleeping on the ground?
Well, mainly because we don't want things falling on us.
It's pretty scary, but since we're all together as a unit, it makes things less nervous.
It was even hard getting outside when it happened. With the 2 kids, we were just bouncing back and forth to the walls when it happened. It was so strong and very powerful, and it was very fearful.
We're not going to go inside, no doubt about it. We're going to stay out here for probably a week.
You never know, these apartments aren't real strong and then could just fall through or something.
Folks here said that they'll just ease themselves back indoors over a matter of days, perhaps weeks, if the ground calms down long enough to let confidence rebuild. No matter how hard one tries to get ahead of the aftershocks to be prepared for them, they always catch one by surprise. And when they start, one never knows if one is standing on top of the next big quake or if it's going to be over very soon. The anxiety factor here is very high. Don Knapp, CNN, Yucca Valley, California.
When the 5 a.m. earthquake rolled through David Hayek's home, it left it in a shambles.
It looks like a bomb went through it. This was in total disarray now, and when we went to bed last night, it was picked up. It wasn't like this at all. This is what happened from the first quake.
Most of the damage was to things that fell from shelves and countertops. But for others, it was more serious, and they were forced into makeshift emergency shelters to ponder their futures.
All my things are destroyed. All my personal possessions, they're gone, they're broke. All we have to be thankful for is our lives.
There's no way to explain it. About as close as I can get is, it's like the tanks out here in the bombing range. You know, whenever those bombs hit, it really rattles your house. But it was scary.
While dozens fled to the shelters, others were forced into a local hospital.
The 3 in our intensive care unit are
in fair condition. Most of our other patients are the same. We had one lady with a fractured hip who underwent surgery, and she's doing fine. We've had, I'd say 50% of the injuries have been due to cuts and lacerations. 2 people came with glass in their eyes. A lot of injuries have been broken bones, a broken hip, broken arms.
Throughout Yucca Valley, storefront windows were shattered. 3 different highways had to be shut down because the pavement simply buckled under the pressure of the tumblers. And at a local bowling alley, the wall came tumbling down. And then there was quake number 2, caught on videotape by CNN. But given the magnitude and the length of the 2 quakes, the damage was relatively minor. Even so, Governor Pete Wilson toured the hardest hit areas to determine what the state can do to help.
The document that you just saw me sign is a declaration of emergency that will allow all the state's resources, all state agencies, to be available to provide whatever assistance are necessary to the county in order to provide relief.
The first quake was the worst in Southern California in 40 years. And after dozens upon dozens of aftershocks, residents here hope it's another 40 before they have a similar Sunday morning scare. Greg Lamott, CNN, Yucca Valley, California.
Most in Yucca Valley didn't get out of bed this morning. They were thrown.
When it slid on the pilings, it just slid over, and it caused it to separate and to drop.
Jim D'Amato's front door is now 2 feet lower than his porch. The quake shoved his trailer off its foundation.
Thank God nobody was hurt. That was my main concern, was that my wife and I are okay.
104 of the 110 trailers here are severely damaged, but all are still standing. Word of a 7.4 earthquake conjures up the impression that everything would be leveled in its path. Not the case here in Yucca Valley. As a matter of fact, across the street you can see the buildings are just fine standing up. And to illustrate the point that the damage is scattered, in the Maytag Center, the windows are out. Right next door in the Amana Center, everything's fine. Highway 247 leading to Landers, the epicenter of the first quake, is buckled and torn apart. What's worse is what photographer Elbert Mock captured on video. The shaking continues. Almost every half hour, there's an aftershock. Even when Governor Wilson was declaring the 2 affected counties disaster areas,
We are still concerned that there will be not only aftershocks, but we don't know what the level of activity will be. There's been a great deal over the past few months, which gives us great concern.
a trembler punctuated Wilson's concern.
Provide the protection necessary.
By late afternoon, the emergency room waiting area at the High Desert Medical Center was full. Among the many, 12-year-old Jonathan White.
I just woke up and there was some blood on my bed. I went back and looked, there was blood on my bed, and I don't know how I got it.
Well, looks nastier than it is, huh?
Yeah, but it still hurts bad.
In all, 76 were brought here. 11 were admitted, 3 of those critical. And as amazing as it might sound, there is only 1 reported fatality. Jonathan Elias, KOVR 13 News. They keep trying to pick up the pieces, but aftershocks won't let them.
See that?
Sonny Choi and some friends continue sweeping up the glass and restocking the shelves, but tremblers keep throwing things back on the floor. Sonny is just relieved his store is still standing.
I said, thank God. I mean, still, I got my business, all I gotta do is clean up the mess. That's about it.
Like rumbling. I mean, just like someone was totally gonna come right through my house.
Teresa Rose is just happy she's alive.
I was trying to get to my babies. They were crying. It seemed like it took me forever just to get to the bed, to the door. I was going back and forth, and I finally reached it. Then that's when it just, I seen it coming.
What she saw was her 800-pound doll cabinet being thrown from the wall right at her.
This is a great big doll cabinet that fell on her, and her bed's right there, and it's on top of half of the bed.
From this home videotape, you can see the cabinet covering her bed. Had Teresa not gotten out of that bed to get her kids,
she could have easily been dead. She could have easily been dead because the blow of this thing is heavy. I mean, you can stand here and rock it and it won't move. It won't move at all. And it's a very heavy cabinet. And when it went, it went.
Teresa came away with some stitches to her head, a broken arm, and a whole lot of bruises.
I just believe the Lord just watched us, really took care. I mean, even though I got hurt, I still feel He was there for me.
Also there for her is her husband and her 3 little girls. All are waiting for Mom to bounce back. As for the dolls in the cabinet, Teresa has a 12-year collection of valuable porcelain dolls. And if you can believe it, only one was broken.
If the earthquakes would stop, we would stay.
If the ground would stop shaking, it would be nice.
If only. Mark Dupuy and Tanya McGinnis wonder when things will change, wonder if it will ever be safe for their family to stop sleeping in a tent and move back inside. It's been this way since June 28th when the big quake struck. The earth hasn't stopped moving yet.
As soon as you're in there for 5 minutes, it's like you're running back out the door again because the whole house starts shaking again. That's why we're outside. Yeah, we're terrified.
The fears are being fueled by thousands of aftershocks, but the rumors of the big one are on a Richter scale of their own, forcing scientists to call a news conference to stem the tide of wild stories, including one that they themselves had fled Southern California in fear.
We're all still in town, and there are no volcanoes in Landers, which is another one I heard.
This quake has taught seismologists a lot about the pressures it produced a 40-mile rift in the earth. Some have even suggested a major quake may only be a few years away now, but they admit no one is sure.
A large earthquake could occur any time between now and 100 years. We don't have any idea when it's going to be.
And the pavement moved.
But that's little consolation for some of the victims who meet once a week as a support group to talk about it.
I'm afraid that it's going to be in at night like it was before, that it'll be dark and then I'll be alone.
Can I get to my children? Will they be safe? Each new aftershock brings more fear.
It's 1 p.m. and time for the latest news from the...
And the local radio station has become an epicenter for anxious listeners.
People have been calling with panic reports of saying, we're going to have the big one, have you heard?
It's especially hard on the kids.
It's been scary because you never know what's going to happen. It shakes again. Won't stop shaking.
It's that fear and uncertainty that remain a way of life for Tanya and her children as long as the earth refuses to stand still. Cindy Kennard, CBS News, Landers, California.
Yucca Valley, of course, was an area that received a lot of damage, and we're still getting reports from that area. We have an amazing videotape that we just received of the second quake, which rolled through the streets of Yucca Valley. We want to show that to you right now. If we have that videotape, this is what it looked like in the desert town of Yucca Valley as the second quake hit.
Car alarms going off.
You can see the cracks in the road.
Absolutely. That was quake number 2, of course, in Yucca Valley, where they were already on edge from being at the epicenter of quake number 1, so I suppose nobody was more alarmed than they were about the second one.
No, and to see the actual road open up there, cracks in the...
bounce like that.
That's something. And we're looking at amateur videotape now, David, that was shot in Yucca Valley. Earlier today, apparently a woman sustained some kind of injury. She could be wrapped in bandages of sorts. This must be taken at one of maybe the medical centers there?
This apparently, yes, the High Desert Medical Center there in Yucca Valley. And as we mentioned earlier, Tracy Savage reported, Sylvia Lopez reported that they had set up a triage center out in front of the medical center. And this is it, taken some home video taken of that area. They were tending to people early this morning outside in front of the hospital itself. But a lot of people shaken up twice.
From what we understand, in the entire area, 111 people have been reported sustaining some kind of injury.
That's right.
Most of them appear to be minor, if not all of them.
And it was in Yucca Valley where the one fatality did occur, the 3.5-year-old boy who was
struck by a chimney.
Struck by a falling chimney, that's right. That was in Yucca Valley as well.